everyone, welcome back to the channel. Whether you're watching on Rob Lewis Racing and Commentating or on Icon Road Track and Race, I'm Rob Lewis. This is my Ford Focus. We've got testing on February the 25th and we've got our first round of the modified Fords mid-March, so I better get cracking. Let's go. How are we doing, everyone? Yeah, so what I'm just doing at the moment is peeling off the remnants of livery on the front. It's got the Silverlake sticker on the front. I'm actually adding a lot more of Silverlake and the various services that Silverlake provides, like you pick it, like the recycle 75% logo on the front bonnet. So I'm just taking the old one off because it was a bit tatty. After last year, I've got some new white. I'm going to put some new white on. You know, it's not going to look the greatest. I'm not a man that does this for a living, but I will make it do as best I can. But in this episode, obviously, last episode, I gave in to what a lot of people were asking, who basically just asked about where the Focus kind of came from. And in this episode, I kind of want to use it as a very, very important episode because I want to talk about the cancer diagnosis I got at the end of last year, how it affected me, what it was I actually had, because I don't want to use it to go, you know, I'm not after sympathy or anything like that. What's happened has happened, but I kind of want to use this as a bit of a warning to any young lads that are out there. I'm 31, didn't expect it to happen, and it's getting a bit more common. So let's talk through it. So it's the usual story. You get out of the shower, you're drying yourself off, and I'm thinking to myself, something doesn't feel right down there. And my right nut had quite a large lump on it. And even when I went out that day in what was my old job with Crown, sat in the van, I could feel it was quite tender, like it was pushing on a nerve. And with something like that, straight away I was like, I just didn't take any chances. I was like, doctors. And got an appointment booked in. And to be honest, I thought, I'm probably just being a bit silly, but it's probably a cyst or something. Went to the GP. He felt it, and you know when you can read someone's face, and you know as soon as the way their body language kind of changes, it's like, oh, okay, maybe it is a bit serious. Turns out it was. So he was like, yeah, we need to get you referred. I ended up going to Portsmouth for an urgent referral in like 2 weeks. And within those 2 weeks, I was panicking a bit. I was a bit worried. I was a bit, a bit on tenterhooks. I actually went and did the last round of the C1s at Snetterton. Got that done and out the way. And there was a few people there that kind of knew what was happening. I sort of told them in confidence because, you know, it was playing on my mind. But at that point, I didn't know actually what it was. But you kind of go with your gut feeling. And I was quite shocked when I went to the hospital on that Monday, and after numerous tests and ultrasounds and all sorts, the consultant sat there in front of me with Dee in the room and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis, it looks like you have testicular cancer. Which is like, oh, shit. And you never think you're going to hear those words, but then when you look at the statistics that they're saying now, they reckon in anyone's lifetime 1 in 2 people will get some form of cancer, which is just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and also a sad state of affairs as to where our world is going, because there is probably a lot of, you know, carcinogenics that are responsible for that, a lot of man-made reasons for that to happen, and of course human evolution, I guess it changes. But anyway, I digress. We're also in an era where we have never been able to live for longer than we have now, so it's kind of a mixed bag. So anyway, I get my diagnosis, and it's very, very frightening because, well, testicular cancer is frightening. And I went in for surgery the Monday after, which was actually the Monday after I did the modified Fords rounds at Brands Hatch. Remember the one I was talking about where I spun round? I probably shouldn't have done that round. My missus said it to me, Nick said it to me, because he came up to the circuit, and hindsight is a wonderful thing afterwards, isn't it? But the reason I wanted to explain all of this was I chose to be very public about it for one very big reason. I want other blokes to make sure that they go through the same experience that I do if they find something. I don't want them to wait until they get very, very, very ill. I was lucky. I caught it at stage 1. It hadn't spread. It wasn't, you know, my clinic notes even say it hadn't got to the lymphatic system yet, which is very good. Very good. But cancer doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care what you're at in life. It doesn't care what you've got planned. So, gents and ladies, actually, you know, for God's sake, ladies, if anyone is watching this, go and get a smear test. And if you're a bloke and you feel something a bit abnormal, don't be shy. Just get it checked. It's one thing that the doctor did say to me is there are a lot of lads that are turning up at hospital with problems that could have been sorted, and it's always the same old thing if they knew about it months ago but were too embarrassed to go to the doctor. Don't do that. The NHS is a wonderful thing. Trust in it. They did good for me, that's for sure. Absolutely wonderful people in our NHS, and yeah, definitely one for definitely a memory I will hold on to sort of for a long time. Getting that diagnosis, but we're all sorted now. We're on the right track. I'm in an intense program for the next year. I have to have a blood test once a month. I have to have a CT scan and a chest x-ray every 3 months. That's for a year, and then it goes out to 6 months, and then it goes out to once a year. And at the 5-year mark I come for a consultation, and if they're happy they'll sign me off. Happy days. So yeah, boys, if you do feel something, get it checked, please. It may not be, and for the sake of a little bit, oh God, I've got to get my nuts out for the doctor and let him have a feel. Well, you'd rather that than have to go through a hefty dose of chemotherapy and a hefty dose of this and all these treatments and everything, and just get it done, get it checked nice and early, whatever you feel, because it could save your life, because it did mine. Simple as. Now, car update. So obviously I'm doing little bits to tidy up the bonnet and make things look very pretty. I have actually asked Export about a fiberglass bonnet, but I need to get back to them because he didn't get back to me. It's fine. So yeah, I've got to make sure I do that. But basically, I am going testing at SNET 300 on the 25th of February. I have the new coolant that has arrived, the top secret. I can't tell anyone about coolant, but I will be flushing out the old system and putting this stuff in. I am also have the DigiDash on order, so hopefully that can get here just in time for me to fit it, so we can test that at Snetterton as well. I like the SNET 300. It's quite a lot of my testing over the years, courtesy of Icon, and thanks to Paul Harvey again. Quite a lot of my testing over the years has been at Snetterton, because it's one of those circuits for me where, you know, there's slow corners, there's fast corners, there's medium pace corners, lefts, rights, nice big braking zones, nice long straights. It's got a bit of everything. So if you can take a circuit like that, set it up well, and just get your confidence in that sort of circuit, it can bode well into other circuits. So, and I've always gone relatively well at SNET. It's where I had my first race as well on a 2CV. So yes, February the 25th, we are at SNET on the 300 circuit. There's a few of the modified Fords boys already. Andy Gray's going to be there in his lush S14. AJ's going to be there, hopefully in the estate. If not, he'll be on towing duties, but he'll still be around, so that'll be good to see him as well. Team Morwin are going to be there with Nick Goff, Katie Ramsey. They're going to be shaking down their new car, which I know what it is, but I'm not allowed to tell anyone yet. Otherwise, he might come and slap me across the face. Yeah, that's where I'm up to so far. What do you reckon? So, yes, it's a big rush, and as I said in my previous vlog, I know for a fact that when we get to Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit, I'm going to have my absolute backside handed to me. I don't know how the hell we're going to do it, but we're going to give it a damn good go. I also inquired about the fiberglass bonnet from Export for this, as I just said. They haven't got back to me yet. I would like to get that done, but you know, if the turnaround for them is 2 weeks and I've got to then get it here, sort it out, put some new blue on it, put some white on it, put the other stickers on it, and then we'll see. But I'll test wrap this in white, because I've got a lot of it, and I'll just get everything as much as I can done on this, as much as possible. Yeah, that's where I'm up to, really. Right, so next day, from when I was talking to you last night about updates with the car, I'm just about to fill that up with some super secret special coolant, which I have been sworn to secrecy about, so I can't tell you what it is. But this stuff is meant to be the absolute bee's knees, and it's not from the motorsport industry. That's the funniest thing about it. So I've looked into the science behind it, and yeah, it totally works. So I'm flushing the coolant system through, making sure everything's tight, and I'm going to fill it up with this stuff, and then I'm going to crack on and hopefully get it cranked over and started today. It hasn't been started for a couple of months, so I'm going to take the plugs out, crank it just to circulate the engine and get oil pressure, then I'll put the plugs back in, then I'll fire it up. As you can probably hear, she's running. Shall I spin you around? So I've just got the cap off at the moment, put the new coolant in, I'm just running it out, bleeding it all through, keeping an eye on things, making sure everything's turning as it should. What I'll then do, get it warm, bleed it off, make sure there's no air holes, do a nut and bolt check on things like the thermostat housing, all the clips, all the hoses, make sure they're all done up tight, run it again. So all is quiet now, she's nice and warm. We'll just have a look around the engine bay. So far so good. We ran it up without the cap on because I wanted to bleed. We ran it up without the cap on, wanted to bleed all the air out of it, so that's all looking good here. And I'm basically looking at all of the coolant lines down here. So that's the spare auxiliary belt pulley where the power steering normally goes on the Focus. So there's one clip there. I want to check that one. I want to check this one. There's this one that goes over to the top of the new thermostat housing. The actual thermostat housing itself I want to check. Make sure there's no weepy, leaky here, because there's a sensor here. That looks dry. There's a sensor at the bottom that's not actually wired in for the dash yet, just under here. That looks dry. There's the connection where this actually bolts onto it. That looks dry. But of course with heat comes expansion. So we've given it a run, everything's hot, need to cool it down now. Once it's cool, everything starts shrinking again. That's when we just do a little nip up check on all these components and see where we're at. Right, so I've just checked everything is tight, made sure there's no leaks, which I can't see anything so far, but until it's stone cold, I'm not going to know. So I'm going to run it up again, just make sure everything's tickety-boo. So come inside with me and we'll start her up. There you go, so she's switched on, she's ticking over. I've got the voltmeter there as well, so that tells me that, you know, if it drops down to 12 volts, I know it's not being charged by the alternator. There's a belt on there, which is what drives the water pump as well. So that is good indication and helps me so I can shut the car off if there's any issues. There's my control panel down there, so my ignition and my two pumps, they're switched on, they're running. That's what runs the car. I haven't got the water temp gauge wired in yet because I'm still waiting for the DigiDash, and I'm hoping to get that wired in before SNET. But effectively this bit is going to be blank. I'm going to keep the voltage gauge there, but this bit is going to be blank. And then I'm just going to mount the DigiDash here so I can see it, make a little L bracket, and then go from there. But so far so good. Oil pressure is good as well, which is nice. It's sat at 4.5 bar at idle, which I'm happy with. About 3 hours later since we had a running, so we've really let it cool down now. We had it running twice. In between it running twice, we nipped everything up in the coolant system, all the hose clips, around the thermostat housing, checked all the sensors where they go in to make sure there's no leaking there. But now it's really got cold, and there is a bit of a nip in the air as well. I'm just going to push it back out of the garage. Number one, check that there's no nasty puddles on the floor, which would be annoying. And more importantly, see if there's any leaking in and around the coolant system. No sign of any major puddles, that's always good. So it's time to look into the engine bay. Let's have a look here. So, push the car outwards a little bit. Let's get the light. So we're directly underneath an LED light at the moment. So all of these, no sign of any leaky. No sign there. Right, the next is to check for dripping down the bell housing, because that's always a sign that the thermostat housing's playing balls. Top sensor there, that looks okay. Okay. Well, I think we can safely assume there, guys, that this has been a good little run, albeit on the driveway. Now, the proof in the pudding will be when we get to Snetterton and put this engine realistically under a load of a track, high revs, get it really warm, get that coolant flowing. But we squeezed all the pipes, made sure everything's as it should. I mean, she certainly pressurised earlier. She got warm and we pushed everything through. Just to check the level inside there. That looks okay. Now don't be phased about the colour of it. It's meant to be a yellowy golden colour. That's what condition the coolant comes in. Yeah. Nice golden colour. Just to be sure, to check the oil. I did top it up just after, and where the engine settled down, that's just over the max mark. I'm quite happy with that, because we do run an oil cooler and I run it just over the max mark to incorporate that. We haven't actually got a thermostat on the cooler as well, we just have that running constantly because these Z-Techs do like to run quite hot. So yeah, that's where we are realistically. I'm happy with that. Good progress made this week. So now we've got that in, we'll probably run the car up a few times, make sure she's still good to go. We'll give that bell housing a dust off because that does look a bit grimy there when we spilled coolant on it before. Yeah, so I think that kind of sums this episode up, guys. I sat here last night and I spoke about my cancer diagnosis, so thank you for listening to that. If you do need any help, I'm going to post a link into the description and the comments below. Obviously, guys, keep a lookout for my channel. I'm growing this channel. This is going to go out on Icon Road Track and Race as well. Keep an eye out for my work on Silverlake while I grow the YouTube channel there and really get to grips with the automotive recycling world and what we can do for all walks of life with that industry. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week, where hopefully, fingers crossed, I should hopefully start getting to grips with the DigiDash, should it arrive. Either way, we hope it does, because Snet's not far away.